Hello, my friends. Katie Day with the Move Me to Texas team. I am here today with another episode of the Real Advice podcast. I'm excited to welcome this week's guest and dig into, I would assume, a lot of different things just based on the conversations we've had at different events and stuff like that. But join me in welcoming our guest this week, an awesome broker licensed in both North Carolina and South Carolina, the Carolinas, if you will, but based out of the Charlotte, Lake Norman area. Heather Cook, what's going on? How are you today?
How are you today, Katie?
I am doing well. Doing well, just getting some work done and excited to take a couple minutes and shoot this and just dig in with you.
Yeah.
So for those that may not know you, how did you get into real estate?
Oh my God, a loaded question. So honestly, I have moved back to my hometown originally, and at the time, I come from a real estate background. My dad and my brother are both appraisers. My aunt had her own brokerage in Indiana, so it's not like it hasn't always kind of been on my radar. Remember listening to my dad talk about comps and when the 2008 crash happened, and he's one of those guys that he's going to tell you the same story like 85 times. Anyway, it was one of those things that I was at a place in my life that I could start over if I wanted to. And I was like, let's just give this a shot. So I did, and it worked out really well.
For sure. So you're saying that your dad, tells a lot of stories. Is that where you get your storytelling from?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. Maybe. I mean, I tell different stories. He tells the same stories.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
no, but he does. He does put a lot of detail into things and things like that. So maybe so.
In no way did I mean to insinuate that your storytelling is repetitive. I've never heard the same story twice. Perhaps it's because we haven't hung
Just
out enough for me to
hang
start
out
hearing
more,
repeat
right?
stories. Yeah. I've only heard, new ones and original content. So I'll definitely let you know if it starts to get repetitive. Like,
Dude,
if
tell me to
you,
stop. Be like, I've heard
yeah,
this. That's
heard
enough.
this old news.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it.
We have a common friend, Brad McCallum. He often tells stories over and over again, but he
I've
just
heard a
uses so
few
many
of
good
them.
words.
It is. I've heard one that has something to do with his child and the finger and a mouth, and like I've heard that one a couple times.
It still doesn't get old, but
It never does get old.
this isn't a mess with Brad McCallum day, so I guess we'll change subjects, or maybe just segue away from that a little bit. So one of the things I feel like you're kind of known for is storytelling, right? And I think that it's sometimes difficult to have a way with words, right? I've always been impressed by your content on Facebook and like your ability to like tell a story about things that I'm like, oh, like I would just be like, hey, look at this dog, or hey, this is what we did today, or hey, whatever. And yours is just a lot more eloquent. So like, let's talk a little bit about that and like Facebook and like how that's turned into a large lead generation platform for you. And like, I would assume that wasn't really kind of what you set out for it to be.
It happened completely by accident. I didn't understand anything about like nothing was intentional in the whole
Yeah.
thing. I didn't understand algorithms. I didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
The writing actually became sort of like my therapy at first, right? Like it was like, gosh, I have so much to say, and once I get in that zone, I just go. But it is. I started noticing things like the more personal I got with stories of my own, the more reaction I was getting. And then I
Yeah.
started getting messages that were like, oh, that happened to me too. And I'm so glad you shared that. It just became a safe place to expose myself. And like I said, this wasn't intentional for business to be impacted by it, but Lord, it was. I mean, we've done 150 million in 3 years with zero ad spend, and it's
Yeah.
straight up my Facebook audience. So, I mean, there's definitely some power in it. I think there's a lot of naysayers about Facebook, and people think it's like, you know, the old people platform or like, but I'm like, it's fine. I'll sit with that crowd. It's where I go.
Well, I mean, and really at the end of the day, when you think about it, like older people, right, generally own homes that are larger, homes that are more expensive. They have equity, they have money to make better financial decisions. So like I'm all for people on Facebook that want to sell their home. So
It is.
yeah,
If you track the insights too, like I always like to, especially the posts that get a lot of reaction,
yeah.
like almost always it's 35 to 55-year-old females. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want my audience to be.
Yeah.
So
Well, and so, I mean, obviously, like, I think some of my takeaways are, sharing some personal stuff, and being somewhat vulnerable. And like, I think that's different for everyone. People often, when, you talk about content, you talk about social media and you talk about like, being personal, they're like, well, I don't want to share, X, Y, and Z. And that's fine. Right. But it's sharing some personal stuff or sharing who you are. Right. And that's person specific on how much you actually share. I guess as far as, now that you've realized, okay, like when I do things like this is how I connect with people, right? And then this is how I then pepper in real estate stuff and stories about real estate. Like if you were teaching me like, okay, hey, like you need to be on Facebook more, you need to do this more, like how, like what would be some things that like I should consider doing or that I should put into like my content mix?
Sure. So I would first tell you to find two pillars of things that you could be consistent about, like the things you're interested in. Mine are obviously dogs and then decorating.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of in the same sense that like on Instagram or TikTok, you want to have like relevant, similar content. Um, you want to have that same kind of thing going on with Facebook so that
Yeah.
people come in and see, and it's not just this like hodgepodge of stuff, you know? And then I think it's the consistency of posting and mixing it up a little bit. Like I want people to know I'm a realtor, but more so I want them to know like I'm a hard worker, I'm honest, I'm a human. There's so many things. So I think it's like ask yourself, your audience is going to believe anything that you tell them. So what do you want to tell them? Who do you want them to know that you are? And figure that out and just like stick to that.
And so do you put in like calls to action of like, so if you're looking to buy or sell, contact me, or is it just more so you're putting the information out there and people are reaching out to you just because your personality and who you are?
Both. I think
Yeah.
the calls to action, I really, 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 it's a bigger deal to me for me to be known and for them to know me as a human, and also that I sell real estate.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like it will come. You know what I mean? If you do that, you don't have to be like, well, if you know somebody who's looking to buy
Yeah.
or sell. My whole goal is to never have to have that conversation. I never want to cold call. I
Yeah.
never want to door knock. So let me do anything in my power to avoid doing that.
Well, I mean, and I think that like just knowing you and the impact you have in your community and that you're, getting to know other business owners and you're doing other things like, that's business and lead generation in itself, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think when people hear like, oh, you do a lot on social, you generate your business organically, you do this, but you don't door knock cold call and blah 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 whatever. Like, oh, so I'm gonna go start posting on Facebook and like there's
Oh my
so much
gosh.
more to it than just that, right? And that's where I think when you start talking to like content creators and stuff, they're like, oh, well, like I don't want to beat the phones. And it's like there's a combination of that until you get to the point where kind of, you and Brad are today.
Right. And it did. It took like years and years of getting there too. And I think that's another thing people have to realize, like, regardless of your content, this isn't like tomorrow this is going to happen. If you start a new TikTok or Instagram or anything, this is like, you've got to keep like putting water in the hose if you want it to come out the other side, like
Yeah.
consistently.
Well, and so obviously in continuing to put out content, I think one of the things I feel like I'm seeing you do now is starting to like add in additional types of content and things like that, right? Like, do you feel
Crying.
like so how has that been as far as a journey of like figuring out like additional things to add? Like if Facebook was gone tomorrow, what would you do, right? So like what else have you done or how have you adjusted or started to like add in additional things?
So TikTok just completely eludes me. Like that's my 2020. It does. It does. I
Yeah.
feel like I need to go back to like Ren and Skimpy land in my brain or something. Like I don't understand TikTok. But I will say Instagram, it's weird for me because like Facebook, I don't have to think about posting. It's just
Yeah.
like that's my go-to. And with Instagram, I'm like, shit, I haven't posted there for like 2 weeks. I forgot. So it's
Yeah.
it's trying to be more conscious of that. And also I like things that you can like use in two places, like Reels, for example.
Yeah.
I downloaded Splice. I kind of got addicted to it. And so like finding little things that you can use on both, that's helpful to me too, because it's like, I feel like if it's safe one place, maybe it's safe somewhere else too.
Yeah. Well, and I think the cross posting is important, right? And that's where, I think some of the longer posts and longer caption posts and things like that may not fly on Instagram.
Right.
But getting into Reels, you can put those both on your Facebook and your Instagram. So it's like you're still getting more content out on both platforms. It's tough when aren't able to cross promote or cross post, or it doesn't make sense to put it on a different platform. Like you're not going to put a 45-minute YouTube video on your Facebook page or on your, Instagram. So
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Nor are you going to put like one of these, like I do the like really long blog style posts on Facebook. Like I've tried to do that on Instagram and it's like, you're out of characters, and I'm out of characters like an eighth of the way into the story. And I'm like, you have to know all the words, like all of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So
You're like, I'm just setting the stage. This isn't a 30-second video. It's going to have to be a little longer than that.
yeah,
So I know you work with your spouse. Have
yeah.
you guys always worked together, or is that a newer development?
So Brad got into real estate in 2017. He got licensed. And he had just moved here from Minnesota. He knew literally, and we're North Carolina. He knew zero
Yeah.
people. So we were with a company that he was taking leads, and I'm a little bit OCD, and I was like, how about I'll just ride around with you and teach you how to do this stuff as we go, right? Like you get the leads and I'll do the talking. This works
Yeah.
great. So we did. So we put 92,000 miles on his car
Oof.
in 2 years. So he learned a lot. I learned a lot. But the most interesting thing is like we never get tired of each other. Literally never. It's like if he has an appointment that's away from me and we're gone for 3 hours, it's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in 50 days. Like it's crazy. So but the balance has got to be there. I mean, I don't think everybody can just be like, I'm gonna get married and have a partner and we're gonna do real estate together. It's like
Yeah.
we're opposites on the disc profile, and it just we're fortunate that it works okay for us.
Well, and have you guys found like kind of roles within like your organization of like this is kind of my lane and this is his lane, or you both kind of just do your own thing, but then sometimes collaborate, or how does that work?
No, we totally have our roles.
Yeah.
When Brad and I got together, I had 8 closed deals that I hadn't been paid on because I couldn't make myself sit down and do like the 40 seconds worth of paperwork to get them all done.
Yeah.
So Brad does the paperwork now. And he handles anything like, I don't want to say administrative because that's not the right word, but anything that's like important, he's going to make sure that gets done.
Heather's like, I'm here to talk and have fun and sell some
I'm gonna make
houses.
everybody happy, and Brad's gonna like do all the hard stuff in the background. So it is. That's the way it kind of goes. But I'll tell you, like, he is amazing with buyers. He's got 3 psychology degrees. He is so patient and such a great listener, and I am not that. So I am really good at listings, and we've kind of found our balance there.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what's kind of cool with us is our personalities are so completely different. You know, Brad, he's like silent Bob. You know, like he says very little, and
Yeah.
I say a lot. And so it always is one or the other of us is going to get along with somebody. You know,
Yeah.
it's like when we meet somebody new, that's been, something that we felt like was a win for us is one of our personalities works.
I've always found that helpful when you have someone else come on a listing appointment with you, whether it's a spouse, business partner, just another person on a team, something like that. Cause it's like normally, like, yeah, you do have, if not completely different personalities, like somewhat different personalities. And like sometimes if I'm talking and you're listening, right, and watching the Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're like, oh, like he doesn't like that, or she likes this, or you can sense some of the body language more if I'm pointing down at the paper and like, going over stuff. And then you can hop in, right, and be like, oh, well, I think that, let's move this in this direction. So I love having, someone else at a listing appointment with me.
Yeah, I think so too. And I honestly think it makes it more fun. And if you think about it, that's what we want this to be anyway. We want this to be as easy and fun for our people as absolutely possible. And that helps it with that for sure.
Yeah. Well, so other than just telling someone to go like find a new spouse or partner or go get married and then have them be a business partner, what advice would you give to someone that's like looking to like grow a team or find additional help or something like that?
As far as the help goes, I think this is something that we've learned. I don't know if you've experienced the same thing. Like the best talent out there isn't going to usually be in an ad or responding to an ad. The best talent out there is already working with someone. So it's finding people that that you think would be a good fit for your team and just having those conversations and seeing if this makes more sense than where they're at. We're never pushy about it because you do want it to like feel like an organic mold, and everybody works nicely together and stuff. But we've all been at places we aren't happy at before, and all it is a conversation.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's one of those things too that like just kind of always putting out there and having the conversations with people and like that local networking, right?
Yes,
Because it's like
for
you may
sure.
meet someone and it's like it's not a fit today, or you don't have the budget for what they're looking for, or you don't have the right fit, and then down the road, your organization grows, and now you have the budget and need what they are, who they are, or what role they want to be, and it fits later, right? And so that's where I think a lot of agents write off like the local networking. And I know that that's huge. And I know you do a ton of that. You guys do like happy hours and training events and different stuff locally. How have you seen that, help you in, your business?
I think everybody should be doing this everywhere. We call it be the mayor of 5 miles from your house. And basically, Brad and I would literally do this multiple times a week, 2 or 3 times a week, meet a stranger that has a small business, whether it's a bakery or a photography studio or a coffee shop, an HVAC guy, we need so many resources anyway that it's awesome to have these connections. but you meet with them, you learn about them. One, now you've got a new human that you know,
Yeah.
which is fabulous. But we didn't never go and talk about us. We wanted to learn about them and what words we can listen for to support their business. And just that statement alone tells them you care, tells them you listen, tell them you're trying to help them. There's so much power in that. And it's so simple. And it costs like $4. Go buy them a cup of coffee and hang out for
Yeah.
like 30 minutes. So there is so much power in that. We built our entire business. Like I said, Brad moved here knowing 0 people. And that's how we did it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I think that that's the biggest takeaway too is like when you're going to a BNI event or you're going to a networking event or whatever it may be, right? Having those conversations and like, how can I help you? Right. And like just the law of reciprocity and like good karma out in the world, it's gonna come
Yes.
back to you, right? But like
Right.
how can I help you and how can I figure out like what's Heather's ideal client and how can I bring them more business? And in turn, like more business will come to me. And I think that's huge. Do you I would assume you also friend them on Facebook?
Oh my gosh, we friend them on Facebook. And this is a big thing too on social media is you don't just friend them, engage in their life. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like it's social media, it's social. Like the first word of it, it tells you exactly what it is. And I think people forget that. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna have this huge audience and I'm just gonna like disappear. And no, like interact with them. But that's a huge part of it too, because then you're continuing to get to know them on a personal level, even though you're not like physically together all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think that's big, especially like, the local business owners and things like that. I love, being involved in the local community. Like and even we were just talking about like there are some things happening in Houston like early next year. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like the event's downtown. So we can do an event like before that at so and so's bar or blah blah blah's restaurant. And like, it's cool to be able to support, friends as opposed to just going to like, TGI Fridays.
For sure. It totally
So
is.
yeah. Um, cool. So outside of Facebook, does a lot of your just knowing your business model, does a lot of your rest of your business come then from past clients and referrals or
So we're active in our neighborhood. And I think everybody again should be doing that too, but not in the sense that we're not going door knocking for the love of God. Like you want your neighbors to like you. So we're not doing that, but it's just being very present. If somebody comes on your Facebook page and says like my HVAC just crapped out, who knows a good HVAC guy?
yeah,
Like I am on it with that stuff and just trying to be like a really good, like a natural resource for them. And then you share, like if we have a listing within our neighborhood, it's like help us find your new neighbors. So we're not being spammy whatsoever,
yeah,
but being just very present that's another huge place we've gotten. Every neighborhood we've moved into, we've done that, and never once have we door knocked or done flyers. None of that
yeah,
stuff. It's just being helpful.
yeah. I I would almost argue, um, I mean I know that like obviously you guys service a large area, but also a small area.
Right.
Like doing some direct mail and doing some other stuff I think would be a huge brand play. Um,
Probably wouldn't be a terrible. And there's so many things that we've talked, Brad and I've talked about, that it's like we haven't done this. And it's not to say that stuff doesn't work. It's like anything. So we figured out what we didn't want to do, right? Like
yeah,
I don't want to cold call. I don't want to door knock. Like these
yeah,
things that I don't want to do. And we just did the other things that work. But that's not to say that there aren't other things that we could definitely add to it. And also something that we feel like, I mean, just being completely transparent, that we need to work on and do better is past client events. And you're really good about that. And, really, really loving on them because, you get busy and you see somebody sold a house with, somebody else 2 years later and you're like, my
yeah.
God,
Shit.
I dropped
Yeah,
the ball. That's on me,
yeah.
So that's our 2023 is we're going to do a whole lot better about that.
I like it. I like it a lot. Um, that is, I think, what I like about the past client events and things like that is just that it makes it so much easier to like make all of those calls, right? And so like you're already like, very engaged with them on Facebook and on social and things like that. But then it's like now here's just another reach out, like, and it could be a Facebook DM or a Facebook, video or whatever. But like here's another reach out to then like just be another point of contact, another touch. And everyone loves a party, like,
Oh yeah.
and I know you enjoy them too. So
Yeah. It's a good time.
yeah. Um, if I just got my license today, brand new agent, just hung it with a brokerage, what advice would you give me as far as like, what should I do with my life?
If you're a brand new agent, well, first I would focus on your sphere, focus and really, really make sure people know this is what you do. You're there to help, be helpful. The small business thing I would encourage you to do as a new agent, like get out there. The biggest thing is like get out of your house. You've got to
Yeah.
have everybody you talk to listen for opportunities to share that you're in real estate. Like, and it's not like oh, here's my card, I'm a realtor. It's the guy next to you at the gas station's pumping gas and he's like, oh my gosh, I've been out cutting my grass all day. And it's like, oh, I just came from a listing and the grass was up to my knees. Oh, you must be a realtor. It's just finding
Yeah.
opportunities to sprinkle it in. And there's opportunities everywhere, and I think it's just being aware of them and understanding too. This is going to take time.
Yeah.
Like get your money saved up before you start this business, and be aware that it's a consistency is key.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, and that's really like you can be successful in any type of lead source, in any type of lead gen, in any type of follow up that you're doing, like as long as you're consistent with it, right?
Yeah, you
And I
got
think
to
that's
do
what a
it.
lot of people fail at is they, do something once or twice and then just kind of let it go, right?
Yeah.
Um, awesome. Okay, so we touched on Facebook, we've touched on obviously working with a spouse. So y'all are starting a team now? Is
We're
that
starting a team. And I mean, again, full transparency, we've tried it before with
yeah,
no organization whatsoever, though. We didn't have it. It was years ago. We didn't have any idea what we were doing. And now we feel like we've got structure, we've got systems in place, we've got a lot to offer now. So yeah, it's been a learning experience for sure, but it's been fun.
well, and so I guess, when you tried it previously and said like you guys didn't know what you were doing, looking back on it now, right? Hindsight being 2020, what do you think were some of the mistakes you made, right? Because I think everyone hears teams, all of these coaches talk about teams, people talk about like, making better use of your time and stuff like that. And that, comes from having a team, right? You make more money. I'm using air quotes for anyone that's just listening and not watching a video here. But like what are some of the key things that you're like, we definitely shouldn't have done this
We should
previously?
have been more present. I mean, that's one of the
Okay.
things is we were in such high level of productivity our own selves at the time that our time, we didn't delegate enough time to spend with the people that were with us. It was like, okay, if you have a question about the contract, give us a call. And that's not enough. You've really, really got to, a team is just, the way we're doing it now is just almost like you've gone from being in like the Target parking lot to being like in the middle of Neiman Marcus. It's just a different, we really, really we want our team to feel loved and to feel we want the people that work with them to understand that like no matter who you end up with, that you're going to be in excellent hands here. So
Yeah.
we spend a lot of one-on-one time working with the etiquette of things. It's not just knowing the contract, it's knowing the right words. And
Yeah.
there's so much more to it that we didn't do before. Systems, having excellent CRMs, really, really good lead follow-up programs. We've got a better grip on it now for sure.
Well, and I think part of that too is, I don't know when you tried to do the stream previously, but like as you learn more about real estate, right? And about what's right and what's wrong and, figuring out your processes and stuff like that, like then suddenly it's like, oh, like, now it makes a lot more sense. And I feel as if I can lead people a lot better and things like that, um, sometimes isn't always the case.
Well, it is. And I always am curious for people who are like, I'm starting a team and they've been in real estate for 18 months. And I'm like, that's going to be interesting to see how that goes because you're still learning right now,
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so, yeah, I do. I feel like we're finally at a place in our career too that we've seen so many things that we are a good resource for teaching and guiding.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess now, you said CRM, systems, processes, things like that. Do you think that that's like the key and like now will be your key to success? Or what do you think are some of the things that like, if you were starting advice to someone that's like, okay, I'm ready to start a team, what would be the things that you would say you have to have these three things or these, how many ever things?
I think you need to have some real clarity on what your expectations are and what they should expect from you. I think that's a big deal. Just because we've rewritten like our agreement like 25 times to make sure everything's
Yeah.
included. It's like every weekend I'm like, I'm rewriting this again. But I think having a really, really good, solid CRM that's got oversight of everybody on a very macro level. Sisu is one that we're getting that I'm really, really liking. I love the details because I think if you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
it helps you with things, not just like how are your agents doing, but also like how, the money you're spending on things like leads and resources, like what is being a good use and what's a waste. There's
Yeah.
just quit wasting money. So that, and then I, gosh, I'm trying to think of all the billion things that we've done right and done wrong before. Again, just being present. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like you've got to be in a headspace and in a workspace that you've got time to be able to dedicate to this, and that you've got patience and understand these people don't come into here knowing what you know. So don't assume that they know what you know,
Yeah.
which for
Yeah,
me is
for
really
sure.
easy.
For sure, for sure. No, I mean, I think that's huge. I think, also just like giving yourself grace with it all. Like, you said, oh, like sitting on the weekend, like, just hanging out and you're like, oh shit, like here's a thought, whatever. I mean, we've redone our, agent agreement multiple times. We've had many iterations of like, this is the career path, or this is the expectation. Once you do this, then you get that, or this is, whatever it may be. And so I think that some of that's like learning. And it's also
Right.
like the agents you have, right? Like if you have brand new agents versus experienced agents versus, people that are in a second career, like all of them are going to need different things. So as much as like we would want it to be a one size fits all, like it's not always that way.
Well, I think the
But
market also adds like some to that too, right? Like, because the market's going to evolve, so you've got to kind of change along with it. Because if you were, for example, like last year, if you were like super buyer agent heavy and didn't have anybody who could do listings, you were going to be in really bad shape,
yeah,
because in this year, I feel like it's probably going to start trending in the opposite direction. So, I mean, it's just being able to like flow with the tide a little bit too.
for sure. For sure. Cool. Um, do you have any books that you recommend an agent read?
So this one's kind of like not one that gets talked about a lot, but it's my current favorite book. It's called Mr. Schmooze. I couldn't
Okay.
tell you who wrote it to save my life.
Mr.
Um,
Schmooze.
it's fantastic. It's about doing the extra thing to make sure people know they feel loved and important. And I'll tell you like a real life example. A girl on our team utilized it. So we went out to dinner last weekend, and Brad and I got there about 15 minutes before the girl and her husband showed up.
Okay.
And we sit down at the table, and the waitress comes up and has two little Prosecco cocktails with a little pink thing in the top. And I'm like, what is that? Like, I just sat down. Like, I didn't even tell you I wanted this. You're at the wrong table,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no, this is the curated cocktail. This is for you. And that our group is called the curated group.
I was like, did you like have a moment when you heard that?
No, I was looking for like Ashton Kutcher everywhere. I'm like, I'm being punked. What is going on right now? But
Yeah.
what she had done before we got to the restaurant is she had called the restaurant and said she loves prosecco and she loves strawberries. Make a little drink with it. Call it the curated cocktail. This is what she looks like when they get there. Deliver this to them. But like,
What?
isn't that amazing? And so
Yeah.
imagine doing that for your clients, and not just with that, but there's so many like little things that you can do that make the experience with you just magical.
Yeah.
And that's what this book talks about, is like doing the extra thing and making it an experience with you and not just a transaction.
That's awesome.
I
I
love
was
it.
like, I thought that like it was just like by happenstance that like this place was like had a curated cocktail drink. I was like, holy shit, like what are the odds that,
Right.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. Have you ever read Giftology?
I have not.
I think that you would like that. It's by Josh Rulin, I think.
Okay.
Rulin. And it's all about gift giving, but like it a lot of times gifts are like, stuff that's like branded material, and it's like, but it's like, how can you go deeper? How can you spend a little bit more money or spend it more wisely kind of thing? But it's definitely one that I think is it's a good read.
Giftology. Well, that's my gift giving is my love language too.
Yeah.
So like that's like right up my alley. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
All right. So other than prosecco and strawberries, I've got a question for you kind of along the same lines. If it was your last meal on earth, what would you be eating?
God, what did I do to get in jail to be in this circumstance?
Uh, you know,
What would I be eating if it was my last meal on earth? Probably I would be eating prime rib with a mix of raw and creamy horseradish and really, really chunky mashed potatoes and green beans, only because I feel like I always need to have a vegetable that's green.
are green beans your favorite green vegetable?
Yeah, probably. I don't love vegetables, but yeah.
Well, I really like green beans. They're my favorite
Yeah,
vegetable.
I
So,
like them if you put bacon and onion in them and let them sit for like 2 hours.
well,
It's so
and butter and yeah,
yeah, yeah.
or deep fry them. But anyways, Heather,
We're so healthy.
yeah. Okay, so if someone doesn't already follow you on social, is Facebook the best place to find you at, or where should they look you up?
I would love it if somebody followed me on Instagram. It's the real Heather Cook. There's dots in between all that. And Heather Cook on Facebook. You may have to follow me. My friends list gets
Are you
full a lot.
maxed? Yeah.
Yeah, it gets maxed out, but I'm fun to follow.
I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, what's a controversial topic that's not like too controversial, but would result in people unfriending me so I didn't have to like unfriend to accept a new friend request when I wanted to type situation. And so I was thinking about like, like the hot takes or the hot thoughts of like, things that like aren't really that controversial, but like, so noodle on that for a while. We're gonna see each other in a few weeks. Feel free to let me know if you think
So
can
how
think of
can we
something.
like intentionally get defriended? Basically, is what you're
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, like, I'm looking to, like, pare down the friend list, but, like, I don't wanna go through, 5,000 people and try to figure out who those people are.
Yeah,
But, like, I mean, there's plenty of people. One thing that I did once was I went through and I, defriended anyone that had a deactivated account,
that's a good
so, like,
idea.
when they're just, like, the gray box and, like,
Right?
whatever. So I defriended a bunch of them, and that gave me, like, 20 more friends. Um, but, yeah, I don't know. So think about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
'Cause it's like there's some people you do wanna see their stuff and, if you follow, you don't necessarily always see everything that they post, and obviously, even if you're friends, you don't see everything that they post, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of on a tangent here, but
No,
just
I'm all like, Katie, why don't you want friends on Facebook? This right now.
well, it's not that I don't want friends, it's that, there's a cap, and then at a certain point, like, then people can only follow you, and I like, being able to interact with people.
And I think that may be one of the benefits of Instagram is there isn't a cap, right? Like you can just have how many ever followers or whatever there.
There's a cap on the amount of characters you're able to put on a post, though, that
I
you've
know that's some
clearly found
BS,
out,
obviously, right?
obviously. Anyways, so the real Heather Cook on Instagram is the best place to find you, and y'all are based in Lake Norman, but service North and South Carolina.
Yep, Greater Charlotte area is kind of our turf within about 45 minutes in any direction of Charlotte. Plus, we cover the beaches in North Carolina because we have a house there and we don't mind going over that way.
That sounds like a good time to
It's
me.
not a bad deal.
Yeah, you're like, fine, we'll go down to the beach house, check on it. Anyways, so thank you so much for your time today. It was awesome hanging out. Always love to get to know you and chat more. So I appreciate it, and
For sure.
can't wait to see you soon.
Same. I'll see you in a couple weeks.